Welcome back to the Alec Lewis Show. I am your host, Alec Lewis. This is episode 187, recording on Friday evening, July 31st. You guys might first wonder, Alec, why are you still at the facility on Friday evening, and why are you recording the first podcast since training camp began 3 days into this thing on a Friday evening? Well, I am glad you guys asked. I'm glad to be here. We are obviously going to start with the Vikings quarterback competition because what else? I mean, it's pretty clear at this point that is the primary topic of discussion. And I am one who will be I asked Justin Jefferson if he'll be excited to know who wins, when it's over. And he's like, I think that'd be easier for the quarterbacks. I don't really mind. But I'd say for me personally, to see the team take shape once the announcement is happens, I think I very much am looking forward to. I am going to be as objective as I possibly can. It's an interesting one where everyone listening to this show, you guys probably have a different view. You want to see it go a different way. You're passionate about a lot of elements related to J.J. McCarthy or Kyler Murray. And I will be one to say that I understand the different perspectives. I think many of them have validity to them. I also, for this podcast, like, I'm not just going to throw statistics at you. Some of my colleagues like Judd Zolgad does a great job tracking those. And I obviously record my own throughout some of these practices, but I just, for this show, and the way we're going to go about it is, I just don't know if saying 15 for 17 comes with the next necessary nuance that is required, I think, to have a real understanding of what those reps actually mean. Just like if you were to look at a box score after a game, some numbers can be deceiving sometimes. And that's not to say they always are, but in this specific instance, for you guys to kind of understand, I mean, there are many different types of reps going on. There are 7-on-7 reps, where the number one offense is going against the number two defense. There are 11-on-11 reps where the number two offense is going against the number two defense. And then there are also, on a play-by-play basis, different priorities and perspectives. So to distill it to one individual number, I think for me, misses some of the layers that affect those results in the first place. So I wanted to start there because obviously, given the polarity of the viewpoints and opinions on all of it, I'm being as forward as I possibly can on how my process and the philosophy we're going to take here for however long this thing goes. So we'll start with Kyler Murray. I've seen 3 practices: Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Fridays, because of the rain, was mostly, I would say, walkthrough-ish. There were towards the end some more realistic snaps, but even though it just didn't feel like full speed, full go. So much more to take from Wednesday and Thursday, even though the Vikings were not in pads. Kyler Murray, here's kind of the rundown. And I made, you just imagine kind of a T-chart of Kyler on one side, JJ on the other, and what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling after kind of internalizing all of it, and hearing the people talk about all of it through a few days. So Kyler, I'd say one theme that has stood out to me is that he has definitely been pushing the ball vertically. And I would say mostly those throws are toward the sidelines, like crossers running away toward the sideline. I can think of a throw on Thursday to Dante Fleming, the former undrafted player out of Tulane, and it was like a high cross over the middle, beat Josh Metellus over the top, kind of angled toward the sidelines. And then there are many others where it's, Jay-Sean Jones toward the left sideline. Like there are a bunch of throws over the course of the first few days where Kyler is definitely pushing it, certainly, and then doing so in a way where the jumble of the middle of the field, I would say there hasn't been a ton of tight window opportunities there. Granted, I think with J.J. McCarthy, you probably like you'd probably say a similar thing. So we'll get into that in a little bit, but I'd say pushing the ball has been a theme. Miscommunications between Kyler and receivers, which I think are at this point, given where this offense is, I just go back to Kirk Cousins and his first training camp with Kevin O'Connell's system. I go back to 2024 with his first training camp, with Sam Darnold's first training camp, in this system. And I just recall early on, it didn't always look the most fluid. That may come across as being empathetic to Kyler's position, but I just think that context is important as I'm walking through it. So like there was a play on Thursday where it was either Justin Jefferson or Jordan Addison, and Kyler threw the ball deep as if it was kind of a go ball. Whether it was Justin or Jordan, they kind of ran a comeback route. So just a missed, probably just on the fly read between quarterback and receiver that definitely, that's definitely stood out. And I think there have been more than, like, there was a throw on Thursday to Justin Jefferson kind of angled over toward the right sideline where it looked like Kyler had led him up the field more. Justin was kind of cutting it off a little early. So we will see and evaluate in detail over the course of Saturday padded practice, over the course of next week's practices. Like, does some of these a little bit off here, a little bit off there, like, does that stuff get tightened up? I think if it doesn't, obviously that's notable. But I would say, and this will be the theme when I get to the end of talking about both guys, like, I just think more of a sample size is necessary in that regard. I mentioned some of the impressive throws. Like, there definitely have been a bunch of them where there was one of Juwan Jennings where Kyler does drop the ball up and down on some of these high crossing type throws, runaways to the sideline, where they are impressive throws with touch and with accuracy. So like that one, that element of Kyler's game and kind of the arm talent, you do see that. And we saw that this spring, so it's not much new. Day two, there were a couple fumbled snaps. One of them was under center, I believe, with Blake Brandel. But I don't get the practice tape to go back and rewatch all of it, which makes it quite difficult. But I would say that one was notable. The shotgun fumble on the snap, I felt like that was a Blake Brandel snap that was a little right. You gotta, the quarterback has to secure the football before anything else. But similar to the miscommunication type stuff offensively, if the quarterback center exchange and fumbled snap problem is persisting by the end of next week, I think there's a real reason to talk about it in depth. So definitely something else that I'm watching. And then I'd say, Kyler is, they've given him a lot of snaps in the shotgun, which is not a surprise. I think if you just talk to people, and hopefully you guys read the story at The Athletic that I did, talking to a lot of Kyler's former coaches and executives in Arizona and some former teammates as well. Like, if you just talk to people, I think Kyler grew up playing in the shotgun. I think for someone of his stature, being in that position allows him to scan the field pre-snap in a way that potentially playing under center doesn't. And so I think that's one area where, while it's early and we haven't seen a lot of formational probably creativity, because the Vikings probably don't want to show a lot of that stuff yet, I do think that's one area where you could see some adaptation from Kevin O'Connell in terms of how they want to operate. And then, I mean, they've had one of the first days, there were a lot of keepers, which means bootlegs. And it looked like Kyler on some of those plays was really comfortable getting out of the pocket, with guys flooding the area in the direction that he was rolling out. So I would expect, depending on if Kyler wins the job, if he does win the job, I'd expect to see a lot of those types of passing concepts on early downs in different ways from the Vikings, to be able to both roll Kyler out to the left and the right, and to squeak certain receivers and tight ends into those areas that gives him options and kind of gets him on the move. So that's really with Kyler, like my initial feel is you've seen a lot of pushing the ball. There have definitely been some miscommunications. The first day there was an interception on a wobbled pass. I didn't see if his hand got hit. I didn't see if he needed to get the ball out quicker. Those are very valid possibilities to what happened on that play. And that's another one, again, where so much of the Viking system, for those guys, for you guys who have listened to the show, you know this, like so much of it is predicated on in split seconds, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, you have to be in a certain spot as a quarterback with your eyes in a certain position and then distribute the football from there. And so if you don't get to a spot quick enough and your eyes aren't positioned in a certain spot at a certain time and things go awry, it's going to become potentially possible to where those types of interceptions surface and occur. So there's that. I think that, some of the impressive throws of Dante Fleming, Jawan Jennings, Justin Jefferson, you've definitely seen a number of them. Day two, definitely the snap exchanges is something that stood out and is worth watching. And then Kyler's comfort kind of on some of the keeper stuff has stood out. He hasn't run a ton. There was one play, I believe Thursday, where he kind of got out of the pocket and darted up the field a little bit. But I think for the most part, it's looked like he has committed to trying to master what this offense is going to require, or at least wants to establish that they want to, the way they want to play their passing game, which is from the pocket, on rhythm, on time, in rhythm. And then there are going to be opportunities throughout every game where within the flow of the game, muddy pockets, you got to go create. But one of the central challenges, and I think it was understood from Kyler and people around him when he arrived in Minnesota, was that playing from the pocket, playing on time and in rhythm was something Kevin O'Connell would want. It was something that Kevin O'Connell have done really, taught really effectively over time. And, Kyler Murray's at this stage in his career at 29 years old, where he knows the more you're scrambling, the more you're trying to put the Superman cape on, the more likely it probably is that you put yourself in the position where durability, which has been a theme, or a lack of it has been a theme for his career. Like you put yourself in positions to be vulnerable, the more you're having to do that stuff. So that's Kyler really to start. I'd say J.J. McCarthy, the first and foremost, like, there haven't been a ton of, through some of the competitive drills, I would say, there haven't been a lot, and this is just my perception of sprayed passes where the accuracy is just really jarring. And that was, as much as almost anything in 2025, that was probably the most jarring, was just you've got a quick out to the left side and the ball is 3 feet above Justin Jefferson's head, or you've got a comeback route to Adam Thielen or TJ Hawkinson and the ball is kind of at their feet. Like, I'd say, for the most part, JJ McCarthy in some of these underneath type throws has put the ball on the money. I'd say there have been a lot of throws, and the accuracy has been good in those throws. There's been a lot of throws that are whether it's the second progression, whether it's, nobody's open deep down the field with developing route concepts. Like, there have been a lot of J.J. McCarthy throws that have been probably 10 yards and in, where it's TJ Hawkinson on a comeback, or Gavin Bartholomew on kind of a comeback route. So it's hard, again, and I just have to be open and honest about this part of it without the tape, without being able to really go back and dissect all of it in the aftermath. It's hard to know factually and correctly whether, you talk about J.J. McCarthy's ADOT, average depth of target throughout these practices, whether it's low because nobody's open down the field and these receivers are covered, or whether it's low because maybe J.J. McCarthy is taking completions, which has been a priority for him, within this offense. So that's just a little bit of the gray area and the complexity that is not going to generate a headline probably, and it's not going to make it easy for you from you guys' standpoint. Probably I'm not giving you a clear one, JJ is this or JJ is that, but I just don't think that probably hits at the truth. So that's why I talk about it like that. I'd say with JJ, the velocity, it still shows up, certainly. There was an underneath throw to Aaron Jones, I think on Wednesday, that looked like it came in really hot and Aaron Jones dropped the ball. This is one of those instances where was that an Aaron Jones drop or was the pass so hot that it came in at an angle and a little bit unexpected to where Aaron Jones dropped the ball. Like, you want to be as fair as possible. So I would guarantee if you went to Aaron Jones after practice and you asked him, he would say that's on him to catch that football. And if you went to J.J. McCarthy after practice, he would say he's got to put more touch on it. But the frequency with which the drops happened last year, it definitely makes your mind wonder if some of the angle of the throw and the velocity of it affects, just some of the catchability, I would say. I thought J.J. McCarthy on day one, I really thought there were some good throws. There were a couple sideline throws, perhaps to kind of like the short side of the field. I don't necessarily know that we saw a ton of getting the ball up and down a bunch. Like, I do feel like over the course of the spring and over the course of the early few days of this, like, I do think there is an intentionality from J.J. McCarthy to apply touch to the ball and to get the ball up and over. I think the question really is, like, when the live bullets are flying and the pass rush is humming, does the mental, having to be intentional about doing that as opposed to it just taking over naturally, like, does that hamper his ability to do that consistently over time? It's just something that I want to continue to watch. And then there are also times with J.J. McCarthy where, like, it feels like he drops back and the timing, like, there are just still times where watching him, it's like click, click, click. Is he waiting to throw the football because, again, no one's open and he's worked with the second group, or is he not seeing it quick enough, reacting quick enough? Like, those are the like, I would like to say that those types of questions are what this coaching staff and the Vikings executives are reviewing every day once they walk off the practice field. And the answers to those types of questions will really dictate so much of how this competition ultimately goes. And so, it's just important for me to say. I'd say, to sum it up with both guys, and obviously we've gone long-winded on both, but I think it's absolutely necessary. And, you guys or anybody who critiques this and says it's kind of a both sides proposition, I just don't think, being flippant with it or quick with it or dramatic with it probably gets the job done the way it needs to in an era where there's already such like a lack of nuance. So I wrote this kind of to say at the end of breaking it all down, like, frankly, I feel like I need to see more. And from my understanding, like, I think the Vikings feel like they want to see more as well. And so, again, Friday was not the type of practice that provided any meaningful probably observation or declaration, but like, my curiosity is Saturday. You've got the pads on for the first time. You got all the fans out there. You've got, there's going to be a ton of Vikings legends out on the field. You want to talk about pressured environment. You want to talk about guys ramped up to play. What does it look like in that environment? If there are 11 on 11 periods where nothing is scripted and it is all on the defense to let it rip and the quarterbacks to respond, I think that those become the opportunities where the separation becomes more obvious or vivid than it has thus far. And so that's just, that's how I feel 3 days in. That it's just, I just feel like I need to see more. And my understanding is the Vikings feel that way too. Just to continue what they've termed, and you credit them for the way they've gone about it, like a comprehensive evaluation of what this is going to be. I mean, Justin Jefferson talked Friday afternoon about all of it, and he provided no hints, no indications, and I'd say nobody really has. It definitely feels like most of the Vikings leaders captains, etc., on board with are on board with watching this thing play out. So, like I, if you're listening to this on Saturday, I expect that to be a pretty big day. And then next week will be critical just in terms of the process that will lead to, this team settling on a quarterback and then moving forward. And I would just say that, there's been a lot of noise around all of it. I personally wonder, at times if the amount of noise, and potentially just the, weight of the decision with the personalities at play and all that, like they're just part of me personally watching it every day that wonders if the benefits of the competition really do outweigh all that encompasses it. But at the end of the day, what will matter is the result. If whoever's starting performs well and the Vikings win football games, then it'll be easy to look back at what this time period is and credit Kevin O'Connell and credit the Vikings staff and credit the Vikings players for the way they handled it, the process that they went through, all that. If the performance with whoever is starting does not go well and the results are not there, it's going to be easier to look back at this time and to ponder what the result might have been had the team felt probably rowing in one direction from the very outset. So it's been fascinating. It's been really interesting to cover. I think it's been really challenging to cover in a way that is that satisfies everyone, because again, even like I often think that numbers, I'm rambling a little bit here, but it's important for me. Like I often think that numbers are a pretty objective measure, but in this case, if you put the statistics of certain, like it just does not, in my opinion, paint the most accurate picture of what it has been every single day. So, yeah, that's where we'll start. We'll come back and I've got some more thoughts from what I've seen through the first 3 days that I'm very excited to get into. Like, frankly, as much as we talk about the quarterback competition, as much as I've written about it, and as much as it is incredibly important for what the Vikings become in 2026, there's a lot of elements to this team that I find fascinating and that I think are worth exploration. So when we come back from our first break, that's what we're going to do here on the Alec Lewis Show. All right, I first want to talk about our presenting sponsor, First Resource Bank. If you do not know about First Resource Bank, you really should. They are a member FDIC bank in the Minneapolis area run by really good people, Tim Siegley, Aaron Siegley, Charlie Anderson. These three guys have worked to build a bank in this region that cares a ton about the community, that wants to be a connector within the community, and they're doing so many cool things with locations opening up all over kind of the city. Their online banking platform for me is the most sleek that I've seen. So I would just say, if you're looking for a new bank and you want to find one with really good people who you walk in a branch, you get to talk about your favorite team because they are as locked in as anyone, First Resource Bank would be the place to go. So if you need any information on where the nearest branch is, please check out the link in the description. The show is also sponsored by Pro MN Athletics. So a few years ago, three guys came together, Kurt, Graham, and Tanner, and they're like, okay, we all love football. We all want this state to grow. It helps it helps the Gophers. It helps communities. It helps high school relevance, all of that. So what can we do to give back and lift the tide of football in Minnesota? So what they did was they created ProMN. And what ProMN is a company that provides opportunities for kids in middle school, kids in high school who are really motivated and want to be really good at this thing. So if you have a son, if you have friends who have son or sons who are committed to playing this game that we all love, I can't say enough about ProMN. They've got summer 7-on-7 leagues. They've got academies throughout the winter and spring. Tanner Morgan, former Gophers quarterback, has been training a ton of the most renowned high school quarterbacks in this state. So their information in the description. I would just say, if you have a son or you have friends who have sons who play this game, like, get in touch with ProMan and they will have something that will be productive. I promise you that. With that, let's get back to some thoughts from the first few days of training camp. All right, let's run through some other conversations and elements of this Vikings team that I think are important. First, so we'll just start with kind of an interesting spot. You guys might be wondering, okay, like, all right, tell me some unheralded guys who we're not thinking about, we're not talking about, that you think are deserving of just keeping eyes on once fans go out there on Saturday. So I'll give you some names. The first, and I believe I mentioned him with the quarterbacks, Dante Fleming, the receiver from Tulane, who was an undrafted player last year. This guy's just stood out. He stood out in the spring. He stood out the first few days with his smoothness, with this, how consistently he's caught the ball. He's 6'2", like 180. Kind of similar build to Justin Jefferson, but like, in terms of like, and that's not, please don't anybody take that as a comparison or I'm going to get absolutely obliterated, but long levered, just kind of moves. He eats up space in a way that, like, it doesn't feel like he really does. And so I just been a guy that I've had my eye on. Another would be, undrafted rookie from this year, Jacob Thomas from James Madison, just seems to be in the right place at the right time out on the field and doesn't look uncomfortable with the system that obviously can be incredibly complex. And I thought it's interesting, like, Brian O'Neill, who received the extension obviously earlier this week, talked about being at the Vikings facility throughout most of the offseason and working with a ton of the young guys and really impressed by those guys. And then I talked this week to Jay Ward, one of the Viking safeties, and one of the things he said was, like, these young dudes in our room are really, really smart. So just think worth probably keeping an eye on Jacob Thomas. Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins, definitely, former, I believe, third or fourth round pick from 2020. 5 out of Georgia. Like, I remember scouts at the time saying to me, like, if he stays at Georgia another college season and dominates the way a lot of those guys tend to progress, like, perhaps he's a second round pick, fringe first round pick. He's come into camp and taken a lot of snaps, with kind of when the Vikings go like 5 down front and they've got 3, interior defensive linemen, some like 5 technique-ish type defensive end position. You've seen some Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins in those spots, which is kind of interesting. So his progression is definitely worth watching. I would say on the offensive line, I feel like Ryan Vandemark, the backup left tackle that the Vikings poached from the Buffalo Bills via restricted free agent, that was a savvy move at the time. But just continues for me, just from a prototype build standpoint, athleticism standpoint, above and beyond what the Vikings had last year in Justin School. And while Christian Darrisaw has been present and really active and sounds really motivated entering this 2026 season, I think to have a guy like Ryan Vandemark behind him is really important. Thinking through the rest of the roster, I would say that, like, I mean, Jamal Adams has definitely mixed in early on. Now, how much of that is the Vikings getting a feel for what he's capable of, we'll find out. But, it'll be interesting to see. I wouldn't be shocked if he plays in some of the preseason games. It'd be interesting to see, like, how much he's used as a blitzer in those games. I mean, obviously teams and the Vikings especially tend to keep it very vanilla, but I will be pretty interested there. Going through the roster, I mean, Miles Price, who returned kicks obviously last year. Miles Price was, he's been kind of everywhere catching the football. There was on Thursday, Carson Wentz threw, 40, 50-yard bomb in the air down the field, and Miles Price made an amazing adjustment on the ball and caught it. So pretty cool to see him at least develop some confidence as a receiver. And I think it does just offer some insurance for him, for him from a making the roster type of perspective. But those are some names early on, probably to keep an eye on. I'd say otherwise offensive skill, like the tight end 3 spot, definitely still want to see a lot more. I think that's a preseason games type of opportunity. I think still the defensive line rotation. I mean, Caleb Banks, I will say this, and maybe I should have led the second part of the show, not with the unheralded folks, but with Caleb Banks. But like, man, to see him out on the field, to see just the size and the frame, to stand next to him, I mean, that guy, you can totally understand why a person of his size who moves the way he does would have been intriguing enough to take a first-round pick, to take him with a first-round pick. Now, I cannot wait to watch when it's joint practices, when it's some of these more competitive team drills, like how much havoc is he really creating on the inside? How much technique development does he need from defensive line coach Ryan Nielsen? But just the like initial impressions of seeing this guy out there. I mean, obviously incredibly positive, the fact that he is out there, but then to see him, it really stands out. And I don't think I'm embellishing anything in that training camp when you guys attend. I think that'll come across pretty clearly. As far as other elements of the team and areas of the team, I would just say, like, I stood on Thursday for probably the first half of the practice, just behind the offensive line, watching that group, Keith Carter, assistant O-line coach Derek Warheim, just watching those guys work, teach, train, yell. I mean, demand a certain standard. Like it was high intensity. It was, high physicality. It was high expectations. And so, I mean, we will see in time whether all of that produces results for that group and results for the run game and in pass protection. I mean, they're definitely, I would say, I don't recall in past times this offensive line practicing pass protection against stunts the way that they are right now. And that stunts have been a constant theme against the Vikings offense and offensive line in recent years. And then from a run game perspective, I mean, you see these offensive line running, moving down the field, connecting on blocks down the field. I mean, colliding with pads, making very loud noises on a daily basis in a way that, I mean, I said it in the spring, but it just feels like there is a level of, I don't know if it's urgency. I don't know if it's just demand that is different. And again, like nothing matters if come the season there aren't results, but these coaches talk so often about process and how that matters. So if the process that I'm seeing does ultimately dictate results come the season, like you can attribute it to some of the process that is ongoing. And then with the run game, and there hasn't been a ton of, there's not a ton of opportunities to see it and assess it and really analyze it, but there's no question. I mean, the Vikings have incorporated a ton of outside zone stuff, just watching them. And they are, it just definitely feels like there is an emphasis in these offensive linemen flying off the ball to create kind of displacement in the run game. So, just some other stuff that has, stood out to me, that has, just raised an antenna within kind of my mind as I watch a lot of this stuff, and we'll look forward to seeing it on an even more detailed level once the pads come on and it becomes really interesting. I wrote about Harrison Smith for Friday. Like, I just don't think you can minimize the role that he has, the role that he's had from a communication aspect to the defense. So while Josh Metellus will definitely fill a lot of that void in the short term, and while Harrison Smith's future remains up in the air from everything I still understand, I would say that, I would just say that my mind is on the defense and replacing that communication void. And if this defense is going to be what it's been, And if this defense needs to be what it's been for the Vikings team to be as good as they want to be, like, I just think that communication aspect is really important. And if the defense does take a step back because of personnel, because of lack of communication, because of lack of depth, then it's obviously going to be incumbent upon this offense to pick up the slack. Kind of like when I cover baseball and it's like, lineup's got to pick the pitcher up. That's just kind of how it feels with this team. And if the quarterback play is not much better and the defense does take a step back, then I wonder kind of, team wide what things look like. But so I think there's reason to be optimistic. I think those are conversations that have just tumbled through my mind as I've stood out there for hours under the sun for the first few days. But before we get out of here, I do want to talk about great clips. All right, if you've got kids, back to school season is a lot. Supply list, shoe shopping, juggling all the schedules. It's not exactly a magical time of year. The Great Clips app, though, that really does work like magic. With just a few taps, you can find a salon nearby, see the wait time, and check in when it works for you. You can even get a message when it's your turn, so you know how to pack up the kids and head over. Oh, and the savings, that's where the real magic happens. So when it's time for back-to-school haircuts, download the Great Clips app. It may not take care of all your back-to-school to-dos, but it'll definitely make some of that stress disappear. Great Clips, it's going to be great. I also want to talk about Aquarius Home Services, your independent authorized Connecticut water systems dealer. It's summer, and that means home improvement season. At Aquarius, they know that managing a household and all the expenses that come with it is no easy task. They also know how important having worry-free water in your home is. Your family deserves water you can trust. Use it every day for drinking, cooking, cleaning, and bathing. That's why they are excited to share their summer trade-in and trade-up program. Trade in your old water softener, trade up to a Connecticut whole home water treatment system. The best part, you get an additional $500 off on top of their summer sale prices. Cannot recommend Aquarius Home Services enough if you are looking for a way to ensure your water is as clean, as smooth, as contaminant-free as possible. That'll do it for episode 187 of the Alec Lewis Show. We will be back early next week, probably after Monday's practice. Let's plan for that. We'll plan for after Monday's practice. That way we'll get pads on Saturday, pads on Monday, and an opportunity to get some more extensive look at all of this. I would say if you've got questions, thoughts, feedback, comments, anything, please toss them in the comments section. Throw them at me on social media at Alec_Lewis on Twitter, at Alec Lewis Show on Instagram. I respond to messages on there. You can send anything at any time. Try to be part of this show is just to be able to communicate to you guys directly in another form that extends beyond my primary job, which is to cover the Vikings for the Athletic. So love being able to have those discussions, conversations, and we'll continue to do it as we lead into this 2026 season and continue on through training camp. Enjoy the weekend, and we will talk to you very, very soon.